Well, hello. Today we are going to be talking about the U.S. system of measurement. So, the United States is really the only country in the world that uses this U.S. system of measurement. There's a couple other countries that have it listed as something they use, but they don't typically use it. Everyone else in the entire world uses something called the metric system, which we'll explore another time. Okay, so these are a couple different units of measure that you might use, but not all of these are the US system. Some of them are the metric. So for instance, if you're here in the United States, you might understand feet really well. That's a US system of measurement. And so, of course, is miles. But in the metric system, they have centimeters and they have kilometers here and kilograms. But these are all mixed in. And so we're not going to necessarily do this all together. So we're going to skip over this. You can go ahead and try this on your own if you'd like. Needless to say, understanding the difference between these two systems is very important, especially if you ever travel outside the United States. You got to pay attention to speed limit signs. For example, 80 kilometers per hour is actually much, much slower than 80 miles per hour. And so just make sure that you're aware of that. So let's go ahead and focus in on the US system, and we'll be doing some conversions. Now, these are some conversions that you really should know. So 12 inches is a foot, right? I'm not going to pull up a picture because you can shrink or make this video bigger, so I can't say like, here's exactly how long an inch is. But anyways, 3 feet is a yard, and then 5,280 feet is a mile. Okay, so we're going to use these conversions to go back and forth between some of the units of measure. All you have to do is to put one of the units that it's equal to on top of the other, and then we can work on multiplying. So for instance, 1 foot and 12 inches, those are equal lengths. If I were to tell you that this length right here is 1 foot, and if I were to tell you that this length right here is 12 inches, and I said divide these two, well, this line, the bottom line, would fit into this top line exactly one time. So in other words, if I take 1 foot, that length, and I divide it by the length that is 12 inches, then that will go in exactly once. That's why this is called a unit conversion. Okay, we're going to be converting our units into more usable units or just different units. Some other conversion rates are all the ones that you just saw up there. For instance, we know 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So if you have a yardstick laying down, you could look at it and say, oh, look, there's 3 feet. And you would also say, look, I have 1 yard. 1 yard fits into 3 feet exactly one time. Whether I write it like this, 1 yard divided by 3 feet, or 3 feet divided by 1 yard, if I were to divide those lengths, the bottom line is they fit exactly one time. We're going to use that to our advantage to make some conversions. If I want to convert 8 feet into inches, I'll start with 8 feet. Now, I like to do this where I write 8 feet, and I'm going to turn this into a fraction by putting it over 1. Then I need to multiply that by a fraction. Now, if I have feet on top, then for my conversion, I need to have feet on bottom as well. So my conversion is going to, if I have feet on top, I got to have feet on bottom for the conversion. And if I want to go feet to inches, then I know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So I'll just take these numbers and put them over here. Well, here's feet, so I'll put foot there, and then that must mean that 12 inches goes on top. Now, the reason that I wanted to have if I had feet on top, I wanted feet on bottom, is so that using this idea of fractions, I can cancel the labels. You can see that the labels cancel completely, and all I have left now is 8 times 12 inches. That is where I get 96 inches from. Now, some people like to use this box method. It's the same thing as my fractions. Some people just like really doing boxes. And that's okay. I used to do the boxes as well, and I think it's a great design to do, so I would strongly encourage you to use that design as well. It doesn't really matter. You're always going to start in the upper left-hand corner with the unit that you have. You're always going to end in the upper right-hand corner with the unit that you want. Okay? And then we just ultimately do some canceling and multiply straight across. For instance, if we want to convert 2 miles into yards, well, you might not know how many yards there are in a mile. That's not as common of a conversion for people to know. But most people do know how many feet there are in a mile. So they start with this idea of 2 miles, and they put 2 miles in the upper left-hand corner. Because miles is in the upper left-hand corner, they would then put miles just diagonal from it down in the bottom. A lot of people do know miles and feet. So they might say, oh, okay, we'll do 1 mile and 5,280 feet. Now that we have feet on top, I'm trying to get to yards. So if I have feet on top, I'm going to put feet on bottom next. And then lastly, a lot of people do know how many feet and yards there are. So they would then put 3 feet and 1 yard. Then we do some canceling. So we cancel the labels and then divide. We get 3,520 yards in 2 miles. Okay, let's do some now here together that aren't worked out ahead of time. For instance, if I want to change 6 feet into inches, I'll start with 6 feet. We'll do this one with the rectangles, I guess. Or it's the same thing as if you were to just write 6 feet over 1. 6 feet over 1 times and then something. Now, if feet is up here in the upper left-hand corner, then that means I need to put feet down here diagonal from it. So I'll go ahead and put feet here next. And I do know how many feet in inches, so I'll put my labels on there. There. Now that my labels are on there, now I can put some numbers on here. 1 foot and 12 inches. So now I have 6 feet times 12 inches over 1 foot. The feet cancel. And that leaves me with 6 times 12, which will get me 72. And the only label that's left is inches. Let's go over here, part B. 7,920 feet. Do this. And if feet is up there on top, right away I'm going to put feet down here so that I can cancel. And I just have to ask myself, is there a conversion to go right from feet to miles? Yeah, there is. That's an easy one. That's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Now, feet and feet cancel. And what I'm left with is 7,290 times 1, which is just 7,290. We still have our label of miles, divided by 5,280. And if I do that on the calculator, it comes out to about 1.38 miles. Our label of miles is left over. Next, I have 5 yards in inches. Now, some people know how many inches are in a yard, but I'm going to do this one maybe with a little bit more conventional way, which is, let's say you don't know how many yards there are in an inch, or how many inches in a yard. So if yards is on top, I'm going to put yards on bottom. And the first thing that I'll know is, oh, I don't know how many yards are in an inch, but you know, yards goes with feet really well, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll put those in there. And then I know that there's 3 feet and 1 yard. Those will work out together. And what I have now is I have my label of feet. But I'm trying to get to inches. So if feet is on top, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put feet on bottom. So feet is on top here, so I go straight to feet on bottom. Notice the numbers are the last thing that I put on here, right? I'm just paying attention to my labels, first of all. Now that I'm able to cancel feet and feet, I've got to think about which number goes where. 12 feet, no, 12 inches and 1 foot. That's my conversion. So feet cancels with feet. And now all I have is 5 times 3 times 12 inches. You multiply all that out and you'll get 180 inches. 1/2 mile. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1/2 miles. Okay, so I'm going to write it like that. And again, maybe you don't know how many yards there are in a mile. That's okay. I see I have miles here, so I'll do what I am familiar with. So I'll put miles here, and I know that miles and feet match up well together. So we'll put that there. And then 5,280 feet. So I'll put the 5,280 on top and 1 mile on bottom. Now, miles and miles goes away. Those cancel. And what I have left is feet. But I'm trying to get to yards. So that means I need to do another conversion. If feet is on top, then feet goes on bottom for the conversion. Again, I'm not using any numbers. I'm only using the labels. Then I'll put the numbers in. I have to write, if one's on top, I got to write it on bottom and then think about that conversion. So feet and feet will cancel. Okay, but let's get our number. Is it 3 yards and 1 foot or 1 yard and 3 feet? That's what it is. Okay. So really what we have here is 5,280 divided by 2 times 3. Now, if you do this on the calculator, you're going to want to either put this in parentheses or do it first. Because if you just type in 5,280 divided by 2 times 3, you're going to get the wrong answer. You'll get a large number. Okay, you'll get a number more than way bigger than you should. But you should get 880 yards. So make sure you do this bottom in parentheses in order to get that 880. Okay. All right, the next one we want to do 72 inches into feet. So this might be a good one to go ahead and try to do on your own. Like pause it right here and then see if you get it. Okay. All right, let's do this together now. I'll start out by putting 72 inches. There is just a 1 conversion here. I'm going to put it over 1. Inches is on top, so I'll put inches on bottom and feet on top. Then I know that there's 12 inches and 1 foot. The inches will cancel, and that leaves me with 72 times 1 feet, or in other words, 72 feet divided by 12. 72 divided by 12 is 6 feet. So 72 inches is the same length as 6 feet. All right, 4.5 miles. Now, you can either do this as 4.5 miles, or you can change this into 9/2 miles. It does not matter to me. I'll just use 4.5. Since we're using a calculator for a lot of this anyways, this will just make things a little easier. Now, if I have miles on top, I'll put miles on bottom. Oops, not minutes. Something different. Put miles on top and miles on. Notice I didn't use just an M. That's because a lot of times if you see M, that stands for meters. And meters are much, much shorter than miles. There's about 1,600 meters in 1 mile. All right, so we'll put miles on bottom and we'll put feet on top. Then I know that there's 1 mile and 5,280 feet. So ultimately we can take 4.5 times 5,280. I'm just doing that on a calculator here. And I got 23,760. There we go. Feet. Don't forget your labels. Next in the United States, our common units of weight are, we use ounces and pounds and tons. Okay, so small things like food, oftentimes we use ounces. Things you can hold in your hand very easily, you would use ounces. If you have to feel like you're lifting them, then you would use pounds. And then anything too heavy to lift, you might be using tons. Now these units are units that you should definitely memorize if you don't know them. 16 ounces in 1 pound and 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. So let's get to converting, because it's just the exact same process as what we've already done, just with our new conversions of things that are equal to each other. So I'll start out with 62 ounces, and that will be on top. And then for the conversion, if ounces is on top, I'll put ounces on bottom. I'm going to come back up here. If I don't have these memorized just yet, I'll come back up here and say, oh, ounces is equal to pounds. That's a conversion I can do. So lbs, right? So we've got 16 ounces and 1 pound. Now we can cancel the ounces. Cancel, cancel. And what I have is 62 times 1 divided by 16. And if I do that, I would probably do that on the calculator. 3.875, I think. So 3.875, and then pounds. So if you got a 62-ounce steak, then that would be pretty awesome. But that comes out to about 3.875 pound steak. That would still be pretty awesome. All right, what if we want to convert 3.5 tons to pounds? Well, remember, we multiply 2 times 3 to get 6, and then we add 1 more to get 7. So this is 7/2 tons. Now you can either use 7/2 or you can use 3.5. It doesn't matter to me. Maybe we'll use 7/2 since we haven't been doing it that way very much recently. So I'll start out by writing it like this. I would write 7/2 tons. Okay, so we have the 7 tons on top and the 2 on bottom. And then if tons is on top, I'll put tons down here. And I know I can check back up there that tons does convert with pounds quite well. There are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. So we go through and do some canceling. The tons cancel. And then we don't even need a calculator for this because, you know what? 2 cancels with this 2 really well and turns that into a 1. So this is 1,000. 7 times 1,000 pounds comes out to be 7,000 pounds. Of course, this one was 3.875 pounds. All right, let's look at the last 2 that we have here. 5 pounds into ounces. We'll start out, of course, by writing 5 pounds up on top. And then if pounds is on top, where do I write pounds next? On bottom, so that it cancels. Pounds goes on bottom. We do have a conversion to go from pounds to ounces. If you check back up at the top of the page, it says that 1 pound equals 16 ounces. And at this point, we can cancel pounds, and I just have 5 times 16, which gets me 80 ounces. The last one here is 42,000 pounds. And we are going to convert that into tons. So if pounds is on top, I'll put pounds on bottom here. And I'll put tons on top. So I know that 1 ton is equal to 2,000 pounds. We'll go ahead and do some canceling of the pounds. Again, I don't need a calculator for this. I can cancel thousands, divide 1,000 out of each of these. And so now what I have is 42 divided by 2. Instead of 42,000 divided by 2,000, I have 42 divided by 2. That's 21 tons. Now, here in the United States, we actually have something called ounces, and we have fluid ounces. And those are different. See, fluid ounces is a measure of volume. It's how much liquid fits into an area. And ounces is a measure of weight, which we just got done talking about. If you look at your can of soda, you might see that it's 355 milliliters, and then you might also see that it says 12 fluid ounces. Okay, it doesn't mean it weighs 12 ounces if you were to set it on a scale. So there is a difference between those measures. Speaking of liquid measure, let's go there next. So units of capacity, again, here in the United States, these are the measures that we commonly use. And if you're measuring in smaller amounts, you might use teaspoon and tablespoon as well. But we're going to stick with these. So 8 fluid ounces is equal to 1 cup. 2 cups equals 1 pint. 2 pints equals 1 quart. 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. Now, I grew up, I used all of these a lot growing up because I happened to grow up on a farm. And so we would can our own vegetables. And so I knew how big a quart jar was and a pint jar. And we made our own jellies and jams and stuff like that. So I grew up with this, but a lot of people don't have this context on just how big a quart jar is or how big a pint is. So, you know, it just takes a little bit of practice. There's also a nice little graphic down here that has a big G. So this is just how some people remember it. And if you look closely, you can see a big G, and then inside the big G are 4 Q's. So 4 quarts fit into 1 gallon. Inside each quart, there's 2 little P's. Those stand for pints. So there's 2 pints in 1 quart. That means you can see that there's actually, if you count them up, there's 8 P's, or 8 pints in 1 gallon. And then if you look inside the P, and this might be straining some of your eyes a little bit, but if you zoom in real close, inside the P, there's 2 little C's. So inside each P, there's actually 2 little C's. It's a little hard to see. A little hard to see, I guess. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You count them up, there's 16 C's inside this big G. So 16 cups make up a gallon. So this is just a little picture that some people like. It helps them to remember some of this stuff. Let's go ahead and work on some conversions, and we'll convert these the exact same way that we've been doing. You probably just want to make sure you go back up and revisit this, especially if you're not very comfortable with some of these measurements like cups and pints and quarts. Okay, so 3 quarts. We start out with that, 3 QT. So I'll put QT, I'll put quarts here on bottom, and then I gotta kind of ask myself, is there a nice way to go from quarts to cups? I mean, sort of. I actually know I can see, according to this picture, there's 4 cups in 1 quart. So I could do that, but you know, if we go based on what we have up here, there's not a nice way to go from cups to quarts, right? We actually have a little layover here with pints. So I'm going to do it that way. So let's go quarts to pints, and then we'll say that there's 1 quart and 2 pints. And of course the quarts will cancel. And now I have pints on top, so that means I need to put pints on bottom. And there is a nice conversion to go from pints to cups. So there's 1 pint and 2 cups. Therefore we can cancel the pints. And what I have is 3 times 2 times 2, which is going to make us 12 cups is 3 quarts. Now, I could have also gone directly there because, like I said, I can actually see that there's 16 cups in 1 quart. So I could have done this and said 3 quarts, put quarts down here, and then said, you know, I know that there's 16 cups in 1 quart. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, there's 16 cups in a gallon, not in a quart. My brain was elsewhere just now. But I could have done this, see, because I know there's 4 cups in a quart, and then bam, bam, we end up with 3 times 4, it gets us 12. So that works as well. That's one of the nice things about this little picture. Okay, let's go 18 pints, and we're going to turn 18 pints into gallons. Now, there's not a great way to do that, so we'll go 18 pints. I'll put pints down on bottom, and then I can do pints and quarts. I don't have one to go directly from pints to gallons, but I can go pints to quarts, right? 2 pints, 1 quart. I'm relying that you guys have your notes open and you have this written down because, again, this is something up here that you probably need to memorize. Right? So you want to make sure that you know how to do this, and you know, write it down at the top of your paper as you're doing homework, because that'll help. All right. Okay, so let's keep going here with these. Of course, our pints cancels. And now all I have is quarts. Well, the quarts isn't what I want, so my next step will be to take and write quarts on bottom. Put quart on bottom and gallon on top. Okay, then we'll say, well, there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. And then I can say quart cancels with quart. And here I've got this. This is then, I've got 18 divided by 4. 18 divided by 4 gallons. That's, oh no, it's not 4, it's 8. There we go. Okay, so 18 on top, 2 times 4 is 8 on bottom. 18 divided by 8 is 2.25. So 18 pints is 2.25 gallons. Okay, 2.5 cups. I can write that out as 5 halves, or you can use 2.5. So 5 halves cups. Some people just use C. That's just fine. I like to put CP. Cups is on top. We got to put cups on bottom. And we do have a nice way to go into the fluid ounces, right? We have a good one for that. There's 8 fluid ounces in 1 cup. So we'll cancel our cups. And now I've got 5 times 8 divided by 2 makes 20. 20 with our label of fluid ounces. The last one of these is 10 quarts. And we do have a good way to go directly from quarts to gallons, but even before I do that, notice as soon as I wrote quarts up on top here, I wrote quarts on bottom down here so that they would cancel. If something's on top, I want to cancel with something on bottom. Now I've got gallons, and of course there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. We do some canceling, and that gets us 2.5 gallons. Okay. The last one we're going to look at is time, and this is one that you probably don't really need so much practice with because the United States uses the same units of time as everyone else in the world, so thankfully we don't have to worry about that. Everyone should know there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, 60 minutes in 1 hour, 24 hours in 1 day, 7 days in 1 week, and then approximately 52 weeks in a year. That's what we would say. You know, there's actually just a touch more than this, and it's even just not quite this. It's really, really close. But we do have a leap year every 4 years, except every 100, except every 1,000. It gets a little complicated. So that's something you can look into if you want. All right. Convert 5.5 minutes into seconds. I'm going to start out, I'm going to go back to the decimal idea of 5.5 minutes. Now, if you don't like that, then don't. Use the 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11, and you can use 11 halves minutes. That's just fine. That will also get you the answer. I'm just going to choose to do it this way. Why? Because I feel like it. Don't tell me how I should feel. So we've got 5.5 minutes over 1, and I'll put minutes on bottom. And there is a nice way to go from minutes to seconds, of course. There are 60 seconds in 1 minute. Then we'll do some canceling. Minutes cancels with minutes, of course. And when we multiply that all out, we should end up getting 330 seconds. Now, if you were going to do it this way, we would do everything exactly the same. Minutes on bottom, seconds on top, 60 seconds over 1 minute. And then the only other thing I would do here is I would probably cancel 2 times 60 to make 30. And 30 times 11 then is 330. 330 seconds, that is. All right, we only have 4 more problems here. We should be able to finish these up in just a minute, right? 4,500 seconds to hours. So we'll put 4,500 seconds down here. There's not a great way to go from seconds to hours. Some people know what it is, but I'm going to go seconds to minutes. That's what I'm going to do first. Now I can cancel the seconds. Oh, I should put my numbers on here. 1 minute, 60 seconds. Again, please put your labels on first, then you put the numbers on. you're much less likely to put a 60 in the wrong spot. I know that sounds weird, but people do it all the time when they don't pay attention to their labels. They end up multiplying by 60 instead of dividing or something like that. So now I have minutes on top. I'll go ahead and put minutes on bottom with hours on top. And of course, there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. What you would do on your calculator is 4,500 divided by 60 times 60. This is an instance where you would absolutely need to put them in parentheses. If you don't, you're going to get it wrong. So this comes out to be, I have in my notes here, 1.25 hours is the only label that we have left. Next we have 2,880 minutes. We want to convert that into days. So this is kind of a long one. Okay, there's a lot here. Let's get going here with this. If minutes is on top, I'll put minutes on bottom and hours on top. Most people don't know how many minutes are on a day, so this makes the most sense to say 60 minutes and 1 hour. Then, if I have hours on top, I'll put hours on bottom and I'll put days on top. We'll say 24 hours and 1 day. Now when I look at what I've got, minutes and minutes cancels. I can say that hours and hours cancels. And what I have left is days. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. So in the calculator, I would put in 2,880 divided by parenthesis 60 times 24. And then if you do all that, you should come out to 2 days. There we go. 2 days. Today. We are going to finish up 1 hour and 45 minutes. Now this is kind of a strange one. What we need to do here is break this up. This is like 1 hour plus 45 minutes. This part is already okay. That's what we want. We want that in minutes. So all we have to do is change this into minutes. Well, 1 hour is 60 minutes. So let's just take 60 minutes plus 45 minutes to get our 105 minutes. Okay, so this is some of the US measurement system. It has its flaws, but it's what we use and it's what you're probably most familiar with. So make sure you're comfortable going back and forth between the appropriate units. In the future, we'll look at the metric measuring system and we'll see some of the conversions that go with that. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.